The book of Joshua tells us about Rahab, a Canaanite prostitute who ends up becoming an unlikely champion of faith. Jericho was one of the main hubs of idol worship, being particularly devoted to the moon goddess Ashtaroth. Here centered the most vile and shameful aspects of the Canaanite religion. Despite her rough background, Rahab recognized that the Lord was with Israel and would give them the promised land. So she hid two men who had been sent to scout the city before their attack, which in turn helped them conquer Jericho. A weighty argument for the authenticity of this narrative is discussed in J.J. Blunt's book Undesigned Coincidences. This is all the more important as its central events are miraculous. As I've talked about before on this channel, an undesigned coincidence is an instance where various narratives describe some event containing insignificant details which, although they are meaningless in themselves, fit together consistently with other insignificant details to provide a consistent picture. Often an undesigned coincidence will provide additional depth to the narrative and will illuminate elements of the situation that otherwise would have gone unnoticed. So here's the story. The children of Israel were camped on the east side of the Jordan River, primed to enter the promised land of Canaan. They crossed into the promised land just before the Passover, and this can be seen from two verses in the book of Joshua. It reads, "Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and camped at Gilgal on the eastern edge of Jericho." Joshua 4:19. Also, while the sons of Israel were camped at Gilgal, they observed the Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the month on the desert plains of Jericho. Joshua 5:10. It was shortly before Israel crossed the Jordan that they sent a couple of spies to check out the land. This is where they met Rahab. Some locals spotted the spies and a search party was sent after them. This is when they came knocking on Rahab's door. The writer of Joshua tells us what happened next, but she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax which she laid in order on the roof. Joshua 2:6. So what exactly is with this detail of the stalks of flax? Well, this is important because of the time of the flax harvest. In that area, flax is harvested the month before the Passover. Unrelatedly to Joshua, Exodus 9:31 tells us about the flax of Egypt being destroyed in the plague of the hail. This plague hit Pharaoh right before the Passover. We also learned that it was the flax harvest season from the Gezer calendar. The Gezer calendar is a small limestone tablet with which an early Canaanite inscription was discovered in 1908 by archaeologist R.A. McAllister. It dates to around the 10th century BC and contains an agricultural calendar of the time. So what exactly is my point? Well, simply put, there's no description of the time of the year at which the scouts hid under the flax. Time of the year has to be inferred from the fact of the pile of flax on the roof, something that would only happen right after the harvest. The date of the crossing is stated more clearly, but there's no reminder of this in the story of the spies. So how exactly do we account for this? It seems to me that there are two options. Number one, the writer of Joshua was either super clever and ensured that the text could withstand very thorough scrutiny, or number two, the author of Joshua didn't consider the season at all, but included the details since they reflected the way that he or his source remembered historical events that actually occurred. It's quite improbable that the author of Joshua was capable of producing such a detailed correspondence. This kind of thing doesn't happen in ancient fictions, even in cases where the writer is working hard to produce a convincing story. And when a writer does manage to produce a coincidence of this type, they will typically make sure that it doesn't go unnoticed. It wouldn't be seen in this very casual and subtle kind of way. Admittedly, it's possible that the writer of Joshua concocted this coincidence, but it's just not very likely. And this is what we have smack dab in the story about the miraculous passing through the Jordan River and the destruction of Jericho. Blunt's comments here seem to be on the mark. He writes, "Here I see truth. Yet how very minute is this incident? How very casually does it present itself to our notice? How very unimportant a matter it seems in the first instance, under what the spies were hidden. Enough that, whatever it was, it answered the purpose and saved their lives. Could the historian have contemplated for one moment the effect which a trifle about a flax stalk might have in corroboration of his account of the passage of the Jordan? This is a great example of an undesigned coincidence which points to the truth of the narrative, and in the words of Blunt, and that, assuredly, truth leads us by the hand to the very edge of the miracle, if not through the miracle itself." Thanks for watching.